Time now for our political roundtable, and joining us at the roundtable is Democratic analyst Marsh, Republican analyst Ginny Buckingham. It's great to see you guys. Thanks for coming in. Let's start with a reaction to Brian Shortsleeve. Ginny, kick us off.
I think he makes a good case for why he has the experience and the approach that really voters are used to in the state of a moderate Republican candidate who can manage. And he made that case well today. I like that he mentioned that he's a Baker Republican and urged independents who voted for Baker, not to mention many Republicans before him, to come into that primary.
Yeah, Ginny's right. He needs the Baker voters to get that unenrolled vote to broaden the base. I think Manoj certainly appeals to the more conservative MAGA part of the Republican Party in Massachusetts, which is not that big. But if Brian Shortsleeve can actually get out there, talk to Baker voters, talk to unenrolled voters, bring them in, as Seth Moulton did at the caucuses, then he's got a real chance to do this. And the other thing is, he just needs to be competitive with Manoj financially. Manoj is writing those checks. He's got like 2 PACs outside supporting him and all that. So he's on the right path. Time is his friend. It is not Mike Manoj's friend.
I also want to point out, and Minogue does not see this clearly, the primary is good for Minogue too, because first of all, it gives him some time to practice. He's not been in this arena before, and he will find that Maura Healey is going to run circles if he's not ready. Two, he can moderate himself a little bit, distance himself from his Trump background, if he has the strategic instinct to know that would be a smart thing to do.
Sorry, one last thing. He not only got the 15.5% at the convention, he's already had his certified signatures to get on the ballot. So he's on the ballot.
Yeah. All right, an end could be in sight in the ongoing battle to audit the legislature. The Supreme Judicial Court ruled Attorney General Andrea Campbell must decide within 30 days if she will represent the auditor in her proposed lawsuit, appoint an outside lawyer, or just deny the request. The court heard arguments last week on whether or not the state auditor can sue the legislature to force them to go ahead and comply with this audit without having to go through the AG's office. The court appears to have set a deadline. It seems like they want to break the stalemate here. Is this the end in sight? What do you think, Marianne?
Whatever the ruling is, it should come with a little lesson on separation of powers, the civics class, so everybody finally understands that, because we talked about it every week. Diana Zazzaglio politically put herself in a position as a win-win. If they rule against her, she's going to say, I'm the only one out there fighting for you. You passed the ballot, the ballot question by 72%. I'm standing up for you. Everyone else is against you. If she loses, she's going to say the same thing. So politically, no one positioned themselves better than she did on this matter. And hopefully, mercifully, it may be coming to an end.
Ginny?
I was going to say hallelujah. Maybe we're seeing it. And the court did seem to indicate they want to rule on the constitutionality, which is really what needs to happen, so we know whether this can go forward or not.
Next item, the Senate announced the biggest local aid package in state history. It comes as cities and towns face budget crunches, but the number is $300 million less than what communities have been asking for. Listen.
So this $53 million is a great step in the right direction, but we need more. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see, especially in these small towns, cuts to public services.
So this needs to be negotiated with the House, so there's still work to do. Ginny, is this the right step to take?
It is. It's a good first step. There needs to be more. I thought Brian Shortsleeve pointed that out, that more local aid without restrictions needs to go to cities and towns. I also want to give a shout out to Prop 2.5, which voters have a chance to say yes or no about their own tax future. Without it, I can't imagine what the affordability crisis would be in Massachusetts if we did not have that restriction on cities and towns.
Anyone will tell you, no matter the particular angle of the budget, it is a very tough year. And even though we're going to talk about the fact that a lot of money is coming in and available, it's going to be a very tough year just to hold the line on a lot of situations and a lot of programs, because Trump has taken so much money out of the states, so much federal money's gone. The economy has dug a hole. So I think there's a balancing act there. And, the cities and towns really are struggling, and they're down the chain on this thing, but it really hurts everybody in the end, and how they're going to balance this out, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, those city managers, those Mayor Fitchburg there, they're saying they're doing the best they can with what they have, trying to keep everything afloat that they can.
And it's not easy, and they all talked about it last week.
Well, I also wonder how much of the COVID money that was supposed to be temporary ended up being baked into cities and towns' budgets, and we're dealing with some of that now too.
Well, state tax revenue is exceeding expectations. In April, the state collected nearly $1 billion more than expected, and that means the state has now collected almost $1.6 billion with 2 months to go in the fiscal year. April typically gets the highest revenue total. Marianne, what do you you think the state should do with all that extra cash?
I think to take a bigger picture view of this is how can the state government get funded this year, and thinking that Democrats will come back to power in the House and the Senate and Congress, and put ourselves in a position not to only fund things, but to invest in things. Because if we simply try to fund things, when we finally come out of this Trump era, you're not digging out of a big hole. And unless you keep investing along the way, we'll be digging out of a hole to who knows where. So fund everybody the best you can, but try to make some investments along the way. Maura Healey tried to do that in her budget. Remains to be seen. We just talked about all the big holes that exist. It is going to be a very tough job.
Brian Shortsleeve says it should go right back to cities and towns.
I think it should go right back to taxpayers, and I think they ought to put it aside so when the income tax question passes, which I think it will, they have the money to fund it, and without this, Washington Monument, emergency, everything's going to go to hell. That's not true.
Right back to taxpayers.
Yeah, give it to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
It's their money.
All right, and this is a moment that actually caught social media by storm. At Marblehead's town meeting, a man called out the town's handling of the MBTA Communities Act. Listen.
So, this is a way to comply with 3A without doing any of the 3A stuff? When we're preserving, the character of Marblehead, it's a bad, we're selfish. Are we kind of being...
We had to beep that, of course, but
Sunday morning.
it's Sunday. It's anytime, Monday afternoon. The town turned down another plan last year. So, Ginny, this is clearly a hot button issue, right, in a lot of places. But bottom line here, does he have a point?
Well, Marblehead is my hometown, and it's a great community. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon ought to sign this guy up right away for their next movie. But I think it points out a broader problem than any problem with just one town, which is this Act 3A a sham overall? Our town's just papering over saying, yeah, we're going to comply, but we're really not. And if so, ought we not look at what that really means? There's a lot of political angst about the MBTA Communities Act. If it's not even effective, what's the whole point here?
The great thing about town meetings is anybody can stand up in them and say the emperor has no clothes. Yeah. And that's what David Modica did. But I think he really hit the nail on the head. I agree with Ginny in terms of making it look like you're doing something and you're really doing nothing. But in this case, what he was saying is this is designed by people who don't want to share the town with you because you're not in their tax bracket. And I think that's the real story here.
All right, Maine Senator Susan Collins has revealed she has a benign tremor. She says it has no impact on her ability to do her job. It comes as the stage is now set for Collins to face off against oyster farmer and Democrat Graham Plattner in November. This is one of the races that will decide the balance of power in the Senate. Marianne, do you think this will change the trajectory of the race at all?
It will right now. I mean, Susan Collins, if you've paid attention to her, has had that tremor forever.
Right.
But it was her launch announcement, the little ad where she was opening a box of running shoes saying, I'm running, and you put them in a position to look their best. And everybody saw that and saw the tremors. So it puts her on the map in terms of her health, but it gets Plattner off the map for now.
And Ginny.
Does she have a Nazi tattoo? I don't think so. She has a benign tremor, and I don't think it's going to matter in the long run. What is going to matter is that they are putting up a candidate who is so extreme.
To your point, though, people have noticed it before. I mean, why now? Why at this point in time, in her political career and in her career?
This is the race that's going to decide the Senate for the country, and Maine, Ohio, Alaska, and North Carolina. And I think people now are paying attention to Susan Collins, who didn't before.
Very good. We continue on the record. Stay with us.